Hi, my name is Emma, and this is my final project for COMM 380, Women and Gender Communication. So let's just dive right into it. So I decided to do my topic on self-objectification and dating apps. I found this to be a really interesting topic. It's very modern. I think this topic isn't talked about a lot, especially with the presence of online dating and how that has kind of shifted our perception of how we view people. Um, all right, so I'm just going to give some background knowledge on some dating apps. So dating apps actually like go all the way back to the modern newspaper. So basically, what that means is that originally, like people bought personal advertisements in the newspaper um, to discreetly connect and communicate with one another in hopes of finding love or sex. So think of like Tinder and Bumble and all those things, but in the newspaper. Kind of fun to think about. So the questions that I asked in my interview are kind of more centered around the use of Tinder. Um, I think Tinder is everyone knows Tinder. Everyone knows kind of the perception of Tinder and how that is different from other dating apps. Tinder is really known as like this hookup culture place where you are judged on by your looks. And it's almost like a game to some people to see how many matches they can get or who they can match with based on their looks. So, some background knowledge on Tinder. So, Sean Rad founded Tinder in 2012. So, Tinder is actually fairly newer, I would say. I mean, it's only 10 years old. It hasn't been around for that long, but it's one of the most used apps in the world. Um, so kind of the name on Tinder, why is it called that? The idea um, is like for setting a spark or setting something on fire. You want to set your love, your passion on fire. You want to find that spark with someone. The main purpose that Tinder was originally used for was for singles looking for more of a casual relationship. Tinder was never intended to be used as like a romantic dating website like eHarmony or Match.com. Um, that is still the case today that Tinder is used mainly just for that hookup kind of place, that casual relationship place, except for in today's day and time, like almost everybody meets their significant other on a dating website or a dating app. It's very uncommon to find someone organically now. Um, but it is shifting to being more of finding a long-term relationship person. Um, so kind of tying in the self-objectification. So the definition of self-objectification is it happens when an individual treats themselves as an object for viewing and is being evaluated by their appearance. So essentially what you would be doing, tying this into Tinder, would be you're making a profile about yourself. You're using your best pictures that you think are your best pictures and you're putting them out there for other people to see you, view you on just your looks to match with you for who knows what reason that you are on the app for. So self-objectification can lead to a lot of psychological consequences. It ties a lot into like mental health risk and everything. A lot of people who have self-esteem issues use these types of apps for kind of validation and to feel like they are beautiful and to hear that they are beautiful or pretty or attractive or handsome, kind of just getting that validation that they fit society's attractiveness. All right, so kind of again fusing the two of dating apps and self-objectification. This is from studies that I have found online. There's so much research about this topic and how Tinder and other dating apps hurt self-confidence, hurt self-esteem, and how they really do affect people's mental health. So some of the stuff that I have found, I am going to read. So Many Tinder users have reported having more mental health problems than people who do not use Tinder. The mental health issues most reported are regular rejection, self-doubt, feelings of hopelessness, and loneliness. Um, People sometimes feel like if they're not getting the attention that they feel like they should be getting on these apps, they feel hopeless and lonely that no one will ever love them. So this ties into a lot of like self-doubt, self-hurt of not feeling good enough for anyone, even someone online. Many Tinder users have also reported having low self-esteem and confidence issues than others who do not use Tinder, specifically with appearance of their face and their body. With mean people judge themselves all the time. They compare themselves all the time. No one's ever not going to do that. No one's ever not perfect with not doing that. And Tinder really highlights those things because you are putting your whole self out there in those pictures, and you are asking to be judged off by your pictures and your appearance. So I want to talk about my perception of dating apps and self-objectification and why I feel passionate about this and why I think this needs to be talked about more, especially in our modern dating world, and how our society is going right now. I think everybody is really hard on themselves and how they look. And these dating apps are not helping people with their confidence. So I have used dating apps before in the past, and I currently do not use any. I do think that for me, it does hurt my self-esteem, and it does play into kind of this self-doubt because I feel like I'm an attractive person, but then when you don't get that validation that you are, it's a very hard thing to cope with. And this is happening to so many people around the world. And I do think that it's subconscious that you are self-objectificating yourself. You know, when you make these profiles, you don't go in with the intentions of, yep, I want people to judge me on how I look. But that's just a part of these apps. Like there's no way of going around it, unless you just put black pictures, black screens. But then you come off as creepy. So you want to make your profiles presentable and attractive. In this case, it becomes a game to many people, and people don't realize that you are self-objectificating yourself when making these profiles. That never crosses people's mind until you sit there and you think, oh my gosh, I really just made this profile with all these pictures of me for someone to judge me to see if I'm up to their standards of attractiveness, which is really messed up once you start thinking about it. So I wanted to interview someone from the Women's Center, someone who has an understanding of our modern dating world, our modern issues with women in dating, and how we want to have that validation all the time, but we don't realize that what we're doing to ourselves with these apps is actually hurting ourselves. And I also interviewed someone who agrees with my opinions, and then someone who is actually neutral on dating apps. They personally have never used them in their life. So my first question was, I asked if they have any background knowledge on Tinder or any dating apps, specifically Tinder. So from the Women's Center, the individual I interviewed said that they are familiar with the app and that it's a modern way of dating. And I completely agree with that. It's definitely the most modern way of dating. There's no denying it. So the person who agrees with me, they said that their personal background with Tinder is that it's definitely a very modern way of dating and it's a very prevalent way of dating. She said that it's really hard to be in your 20s and not be on these apps. It just seems like the norm, and it seems like everybody's on there, and that's where you're going to find anyone to talk to, anyone to hook up with, anyone to date, anyone to marry. That's just how we're going to do it these days. And then the person who was neutral said that they personally have not used the apps, but they do know people that are on them, and hopefully that the people who are on them are single and using the app to find a healthy relationship or a companion of some form. The second question I asked, does Tinder give validation or false validation to an individual? So the individual from the Women's Center said, both. I have seen real relationships bloom and give a healthy form of validation. However, Tinder and other dating apps can be a dangerous place. Some people prey on people who need that constant attention and validation on these apps. So people who are very insecure in themselves end up getting hurt along the way in this process of these dating apps because people sometimes don't have the best intentions on these apps and use people and give them false hope about themselves and their future. So the person who agrees, I think they said, I think when I use Tinder, it is nice to hear the validation that you are attractive. Tinder is designed to be quick and not to have real consequences from it. It's a very no strings attached form of validation. So this person recognizes that, like, yes, it is nice to hear nice things about yourself, but also that it's not necessarily serious and these people are not going to be in your life for a long time, kind of thing. They have the idea that Tinder and these apps are used for just mainly quick conversations, for a little confidence boost sometimes. The person who is neutral said, I think you can get real validation, but I lean more towards a sense of false validation. The reason is you don't really know the other person's intentions, and our intentions are what they are saying is what they're saying true. You don't know anything about them, their intentions, or their mental health. And I think their mental health plays into consideration when giving out compliments or any form of validation. This is kind of going back to what the person from the Women's Center said about people preying on people who are less confident or need that validation. Tinder and these apps become a very dangerous place when people aren't on them for the correct intentions. The next one is, do you think people are self-objectificating themselves on dating apps? The person from the Women's Center said it's inevitable. When you're joining these apps, that is essentially what you are doing to yourself, even if it's not your intentions. When you make these profiles, it's very subconsciously that's what you're doing, and most people don't realize that making these profiles is self-objectificating yourself. You don't realize that you are really putting yourself out there to be judged 24/7. The person who agrees said, I don't think people do it intentionally, but with the psychology behind Tinder and studies that have been done on it, this is essentially what people who use it are doing, but are subconsciously doing it. So they don't really realize that they are putting themselves out there to be judged. The person who's neutral said, I would hope that people aren't doing this, but again, you don't know anyone's intentions. However, self-objectification is almost a guarantee when joining dating apps. You're making a profile of yourself to be judged on your looks. Next question. Do you think that dating apps play into people's egos? Person from the Women's Center said, I do think that dating apps play into a person's ego. You're essentially asking someone for compliments on how you look. If you're constantly being told that you look good, your ego will grow. If you're being told that you're attractive, you are going to grow your confidence, but also you have to figure these things out internally, and not just from what people are saying. Person who agrees says, yes, I think more people use it and meet up with individuals they match with. Their ego can grow from that. So if you are using these apps and you meet these people and they are giving you the compliments, your ego is going to grow and it becomes kind of an addicting game, and you keep doing that. And your ego is essentially going to grow with it. And then the person who is neutral said, honestly, any social media app these days makes people egotistical. Everyone wants to know if they are attractive or fit society standards or are good looking. And then the last question I asked was, do you think there are better dating apps than Tinder for women? Like I said in the beginning, there are tons of dating apps out there in the world, but Tinder is the most used dating app in the country, in the world. It has, I think, millions of swipes, over millions of swipes a day. It's kind of scary to think that people are on those apps that much. But so the person from the Women's Center said, Bumble and Hinge. I have found that people on these apps have better intentions than people on Tinder. The founders of these apps created them with women in mind so that the apps are designed to be safer and to make women feel more comfortable. Um, I completely agree with that. I think these apps are definitely designed to make the woman have an upper hand, and that they just are designed to with women in mind to keep them safer and make sure that they are actually getting the experience that they want. So the person who agrees said, from personal experience, I do like Bumble more. I like that I can be in control of who I want to talk to. It gives women the power and I feel more respected by men while using Bumble. They have found that using that app, men have better intentions, and they haven't really had issues or of kind of this self-doubt, kind of the self-conscious issues, self-esteem issues that Tinder has given people. They also said that it still plays into the self-objectification, but because you have the control almost in a sense, it's not as harmful to yourself. And then the person who is neutral said, again, I have never used a dating app, but I do think that there's an area of improvement on all dating apps. I think that men on these apps lack on the respect area to women. And I agree with this statement. I think that people shouldn't be on these apps unless they learn how to respect other people. It doesn't necessarily have to be women, but I think people need to learn to respect others before joining these apps because they can become a very dangerous place and people say very hurtful things on these apps. So that is the end of my project. I hope you found the information interesting. I thought this was a really interesting topic, and I wish that we could have talked kind of more about this topic in class. I feel like dating apps, especially in our time, are kind of very looked over because it's so normal. But if you honestly really think about the process of a dating app, it's the most unnatural, weird thing app to ever kind of exist because you really are putting yourself out there for society to see if you fit in society's standards of attractiveness, which is harmful to a person's mental health. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video and hope you had a great semester.